So this is bottom up safety squat bar good mornings. And the reason I'm using safety squat bar for these particularly today is because I can't get into the rack position because my left shoulder is fucked up, right? So safety squat bar allows you to still put things on your back like you would, when you're getting under a bar, but you can keep your shoulder kind of in a more neutral position. So you can still train that stuff. This is just a really good workaround. Even when your shoulder's not banged up, it's still a really good bar. It centers the weight a little bit further out in front, which makes it a lot more challenging. So I could usually do this with something like 2 plates, but the bar weighs about 60, and then I think there's 35 a side on there, so it's about a plate a side on a regular bar, so like something like 130 pounds. And the bottom up component I like because, if you dump it or if you just can't complete it, you can just leave the bar in the rack, so I find it really safe. And as soon as I start to feel my low back start to cave, like low back isn't solid throughout the movement, I'm done. That's the end of the set. So these are just something to take the place of the axial loading that I would be getting on the deadlift, because I can't hold the bar right with my left arm. Again, it's like something going on in the shoulder socket. If it is a labral tear, it's long-headed biceps, but this is something like a minute and 26 seconds with just over 315. And I do find it fairly challenging. Like, you just have to stay nice and upright, and you'll find, into about a minute or so, your body wants to start to kind of cave in, and you have to breathe into the bar. It's really, really challenging, actually. So I'm going to rotate these in the place of the stimulus my spine would be getting on the deadlift for axial loading. I need my spine to be prepared for the loads that I'd like to put on them when it's time. So I think this is a good workaround for now. Safe, easy. It's fairly challenging, but I'm going to work my way up into the 500, 600, 700 pound range. And that should give me a good bit of resilience when it's time to go actually pull 500, 600, 700 pounds on the deadlift. So this instance, decided to try out the single leg Bulgarians with the safety squat bar, since this is going to be how I have to set them up from now on, because, left arm, whatever. This is not too bad. This is, again, 60 pounds with the empty bar, so it leaves a lot of room for improvement, and just finding like a good rack height so that if I bail, I can just bail into the rack. It's really safe. Felt pretty good with the knee. Still get a little bit of this like toothache type pain in the fibular distribution on the right. This is an ongoing issue when I hit that bottom of the range. It hurts particularly on the turnaround, so when I start to actually get out of the squat position. Anyway, it'll hopefully come around. I need to get some treatment for it and everything. A couple sets of 8 with 6, felt good. The next time I go to do these, I'll probably work up to something like 80 or 85 pounds. So that'll be in about a week. I'm kind of doing these early because I did those narrow squats this week. So I'm going to have to watch it, not overdo it for the knees, because that's been a historical problem for me, is knees can't handle a ton of volume. The joint is really compromised, but they're starting to get better. But, just because things are starting to get better doesn't mean we should increase right away the volume, because that could lead us right back to where we came from. So today has been focused on building the back. Since I can't do any rowing with my arm, I'm just focusing on extension, fixation type movements, and then axial loading, because I want to start getting prepared to deadlift more weight. But while the arm can't hold on to the plates, the bar, and while I can't get into the rack position, I'm going to have these safety squat bar so that I can rack out in front, so I can still train all that stuff that you need a barbell for. And then I'm just going to find workarounds too. So I got my last exercise here. I'm just giving it a try. I don't know where to go. I'm just trying to find things that I can do that allow me to trim my back the way I need to in order to progress in major powerlifting lifts, right? So I'm going to just keep going. And then the last little bit of stuff is just accessory extra pump stuff for the shoulder specifically. So whatever movements I can do, that's the movements I'm going to lean into today. So we'll start there. Today I think is day 3 or 4 after the injury. I'll be honest, these felt pretty awkward. I mean, it's slung around the left shoulder, and then I'm kind of holding it a little bit more with my right, and I'm kind of stabilizing it with the left. You do feel a little bit of rotational torque on the hamstrings, but honestly, if you look at a sport like strongman, which is ideally the sport that I'd like to try to return to, you're going to be loading stuff unevenly all the time. So I feel like it might not be such a terrible thing, but I could try to switch the sling so that at least I'm getting the same amount of work in on both sides with that awkward distribution of force. It is kind of pulling the left torso down and forwards. So this is the bit with the shoulder, the shoulder part. So when you've hurt yourself and it's pretty bad and you can't really do much with that limb, I would say light training more frequently, probably the way to go. So for me, I'm going to try to do something that encourages, trying those ranges of motion frequently and regularly. So it's Saturday. So it's 6 days since I hurt it pretty much. And day 1 could hardly move it at all. I had to tip my body to get a passive range of motion or use the other arm to move it around. Day 3 started to be able to do some stuff with the hand as long as I put things in the hand with the right arm. I can hold stuff. I can't really push or pull. There's no power really, and it's all coming from the shoulder. So this is day 4, I believe. And now I'm finally starting to be able to do a little bit of abduction. So very slight. So what I'm going to do, and also anything curling, basically anything using the bicep, feels like the shoulder is going to pop out of its socket. So instead of avoiding that completely, what I'm going to do is just reduce the amount of weight or the amount of resistance that I'm using to a point where I can handle it and just lean into it frequently, right? Because the only thing that's going to really get that area stronger is mechanical stress. And the theory of progressive overload does still apply here. So basically what you want to do is find a regression that your body can handle, lean into that amount of force, without further damaging. So you want to create a stimulus, essentially, and get some good blood flow, and also try to desensitize the area as soon as possible. So get it to feel less, less compromised. So this was a big one for me. This is side laterals. This is all the range I had, but as we went a little bit more, this movement started to feel better and better. Same thing with the curls, same thing with the extensions, and the rear flies were also pretty challenging as well, but there's something about the band tension that really feels good about it. Beginning of the set doesn't feel good, but as we go further into the set, it feels better and better. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And each day I'm waking up, it's sore. It's sore as if I trained it, but less sore than previous days. So anyway, that's kind of the process. We're at about a week in. And again, I wouldn't really suggest people start doing this kind of stuff with a severe injury till about a week in, but use your own discretion. You know your body better than anybody. And if you can start doing some very minimal stuff, like just moving the arm through a pain-free range of motion, I'd say that's a great place to start. So we're just getting done with the bicep component. Did rear delts, did triceps, did a little bit of lateral raises, kind of with the band tension pulling forwards, and biceps. Don't want to shrink away. So the bit for the shoulder is not really that complicated, right? So had a big injury, and most movements hurt, right? So just find whichever movements you can do and do them. And generally, the shoulder will start to feel better throughout the set. And usually after the rehab stuff, it'll feel more sore than before. But there's a certain amount of acceptable pain. I don't know how else to describe it, but it shouldn't be excruciating crippled after, but it probably will be a little bit more tender and sensitive depending on when you start, right? So Again, I'm on like day 3 or 4. It's usually sooner than I would recommend for people to do this kind of stuff, but it's feeling better than day 2. And if it is day 4, it's feeling better than day 3. So steady progress. So I'm going to do a lot of this. This is just a real thin yellow band, and since I think it's the labrum, right, curling movements really hurt, really deep proximal bicep, like right up in here. And then also having a little bit of pain in the back and when I do abduction. So I'm not sure if it's, I'm not sure if it's labrum, or I'm not sure if it's rotator cuff or what, but the process is probably going to be the same no matter what. Just get that pain-free range of motion first, and then start using some light band work. Light band work is a great place to get started. And then just graduate from one thing to the next and try to keep as many things in rotation as possible. So like work around the issue, right? So find other ways to do the exercise. Like can't deadlift, so find your workaround. For me, it's going to be safety squat good mornings and Rubbish raises with the strap around half of my back there. So anyway, that's the shoulder tip for the day. I'm going to finish my back.